What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best Path of Exile 2 builds in 2025. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both leveling and endgame. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what atlas passive should you use. So we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup is super fun and has insane amount of lightning damage. Also, as you can see, it is one of the most visually impressive builds in the game, as the sorceress can paralyze and destroy monsters with a barrage of lightning. Our build has insane amount of AoV and great speed farming potential, by shredding through the maps and all the other endgame content with ease. All of these 3 skills, so the Archmage, the Lightning Incandescent and the Spark skills, together make up the bulk of our insane damage. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Sorceress has many tools to address this problem, and with optimized gear we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or gear to completely solve this issue. So if you want to fill out your entire screen with sparks of lightning and speed clear through the hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So with all of this said, let me show you the build. For the main class we have chosen the Sorceress and our ascendancy is the Stormweaver. And for our first skill we have the Spark, and we are going with the support gems such as the Pierce, Arcane Tempo, Acceleration, Persistence and Wild Shards. Then second we got the Lightning Incandescent with the Controlled Destruction, Elemental Focus, Considered Casting, Lightning Mastery and Execute. Then next we got the Orbs of Storm with Lightning Exposure, Strip Away, Conduction, Fount of Mana and Magnified Effect. Then next we have a Mana Tempest with Inspiration, Premeditation and Murderous Intent. Then next we have Conductivity with gems like the Hex Bloom and the Heightened Curse and Focus Curse. Then next we have the Enfeeble with the Curse Ground and Expands. Then next we have the Voltaic Mark with no gems. Then next we have the Archmage with also no gems selected. And finally for the last one we got the Mana Remnants with Clarity, Vitality and Cannibalism. Next up we have our passive skill tree. In very simple terms, every character is granted 1 passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more for completing certain quests. We have 3 node tabs, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach, and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node and make our way like this, until we get the raw power and the Path of Storms. Then now we make our way all the way up here, and get this overexposure. Then from here we can circle back a little, and get the Arcane Blossom and then these 2 more nodes. Then now we make our way all the way up here until the top, then take the right like this, and get these 2 nodes called the Power Conduction and the Pure Power. And now from here we can make our way all the way to the right side, and on our way we can pick up all of these nodes in no particular order. As soon as you unlock the Constant Gale Ascension, which gives us the Arcane Surge, then now we can invest our points into the left side. But until that point, just get everything on the right. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascension setup this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Constant Gale, then the Force of Will, then next up get the Strike twice, and then finally get the Scourging Winds node. To simplify my decision making so you could easier understand, then we wanted to prioritize the raw power, Path of Storms, Arcane Blossom and the Overexposure, as this will give us the biggest build upgrades to not only damage but mana as well, so we wanted to get them first. And then for the rest we invested into more mana regen, more skill effect duration, and just more damage, which will make our character extremely powerful. As most importantly, because of the Archmage skill, the more mana we have, the more insane damage we can do. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand. And you don't have to, but if you can, then get some of these bonus stats like increased spell damage and lightning damage to attacks. Also, extra mana stat could be helpful as well. Then for the helmet we have the Coral Circlet with Energy Shield, and for the bonus stats get the Maximum Life, Fire Resistance and Cold Resistance. Then for the chest we have the Bone Raiment with Energy Shield, percentage increase to max Energy Shield and the Fire and Cold Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Ornate Belt with reduced charm charges, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for the gloves we got the jeweled gloves with energy shield, and for the bonus stats get the maximum life, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for boots we are using the feathered sandals with energy shield, and for the bonus, at this time you 100% only want this, and it is as high movement speed as possible. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, and for the extras we want any other type of resistances like the lightning and etc. While on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for the extras again we want more resistances of any type or the maximum energy shield. And then finally for the amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regeneration, and for the extras we have maximum energy shield. As the game just launched, so this is the starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon is the most important upgrade, so prioritize any type of flat damage or increased attack speed. Specifically, the lightning damage roll will be the most important one, as your skills themselves do a lot of conversion. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so prioritize energy shield, maximum life, and any type of resistance that you can. Also, movement speed on boots is a good option as well. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. We want to start our main rotation by first off activating the Archmage, which while active will give our non-channeling spells cost additional mana, but now in return we will deal extra lightning damage based on our DPS and our maximum mana. And then from here we can simply spam the spark and the orb of storm, and this will fill our entire screen with the lightning that will destroy enemies in seconds. As you can see, this rotation is pretty straightforward. All you need to do is basically keep spamming the main rotation, and then use the rest of the filler skills for bosses, or depending on the specific situation. If you ever run into the mana problem, then remember all the ways that I previously said on how we can increase it, and then also we can use the mana Tempest and mana remnants to recover it even faster. And this might sound obvious, especially at the beginning when you might not have unlocked the Archmage skill. But if you run out of mana, then just simply cast less skills and wait. You will be doing very high damage anyways, so casting fewer skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're under-geared or under-leveled. So this is an endgame build that utilizes the power of the attribute stacking to increase its performance. Our main goal is to stack as much strength, dexterity, and intelligence as possible, to then scale it with our unique items such as the Pillar of the God and the Hand of Wisdom and the Action. One of the best things about our setup is that all it needs to function at the start is the Pillar of the Caged God, which is pretty affordable on a budget, but then later on we can scale it incredibly high with each unique item and massive power upgrades and much more. Our main playstyle will revolve around using the Tempest flurry in the combination with the charged staff that can hit multiple times and create lightning shockwaves. If you want to zoom through the maps insanely fast while destroying anything and everyone that crosses your path, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the gambling legionnaire. Then for the first skill we have the Tempest flurry with the support gems such as the martial tempo, inspiration, glacianation and the ice bite. Then second we get the charged staff with the primal armament, lightning infusion, overcharge and the concentrated effect. Then next we got the Tempest belt with the concentrated effect, over abundance, elemental focus and the close combat. Next we have the Wind Dancer with the blind, maim and the pin. Next up we have the Herald of the Ice with magnified effect, lightning infusion, primal armament and the elemental focus. Next we got the Combat Frenzy with the profusion. And finally for the last one we are using the Glacial Cascade with no support gems. Most of the setup is structured around using the Tempest Fury and the charged staff to delete huge amount of enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Also, at this point I would usually show you a leveling build, but this time our particular setup is specifically meant for only endgame, because it will only start working when we get the quarterstaff called the Pillar of the Caged God. So until that point I would recommend to use my cheap gas grenade build, which link you can find in the description and on this website. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this armor and evasion node, then go like this while also grabbing the battle hardened and the relentless. Then from here keep on moving while also on our way getting these two and also the beef. Then afterwards we go like this, and then here at the end we want to go up top and get this blood magic. We want to use this specific node because scaling mana and handling mana cost is expensive while maintaining very high tankiness. So this is a great keystone to solve any potential mana problem. Then after this, we now want to circle back and this time go to the bottom and get this brute strength. And then as you can see from here, the whole path pretty much just goes in a straight line. So just follow it while also grabbing everything that you can see right here. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you don't need to get these two, so the lightning rod and the flash storm, if you still haven't equipped the hands of the wisdom and action. And then from here, the most important nodes and the ones we want to get is the storm and the river, as they increase our evasion rating while also letting the freeze to build up faster for more consistent explosions with the herald of the ice. And on top of this, it also makes keeping up our charge staff much easier by giving it an extra duration when consuming a single power charge, since it counts as using an extra charge. And then finally, the last most important part is the resonance, as it is one of the core nodes of our build. It will convert the frenzy charges gained from the combat frenzy into the power charges, which will allow us to cast our insane charge staff. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to get the adaptive capability, then second get the enhanced effectiveness. Because of how many attributes we will stack, this node will grant us a massive amount of life early on. With about 500 strength, this node will result in more than 1000 extra life. Then for the third one we want to get the integrated efficiency. And then finally for the last one we get the gem studded, which is another powerful node. If we don't get this one, then our build will run out of the effective support gems. So we want to get it to not only increase our DPS, but also to create the bigger explosions by using the Herald of the Ice. So feel free to use the exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website. And this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next up we have our Atlas passives. So when we start we want to first of all go to the right side and get all of these nodes, until we get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we want to circle back to the middle, and this time go up top, until we get to the second keystone called the Corrupted Infusion. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives. Which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter, so this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Then next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Pillar of the Cage God. This is relatively cheap and common item, however in the early game we want to use the Glacial Rune or the Storm Rune to increase its flat damage output even more. On top of this, if you get lucky enough, then you can also find this quarterstaff with 3 sockets. Then for the helmet we have the 3 dragons. And after you get the Hands of the Wisdom in action, then this is the third priority that you should get, as it is mandatory to ensure that you are freezing enemies for a massive Herald of the Ice explosion. Then for the chest we have the Warrior Invictus. This is another powerful item, but this time not mandatory whatsoever, so use this one or anything similar. And for stats we want to focus on increased evasion, more to strength, dexterity and intelligence, and more resistances like fire, cold, lightning and chaos. Then for the belt we have the double belt with increased charm charges. And for bonus stats we want max life, more to strength and chaos and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Hand of the Wisdom in action. This should be the second item that you prioritize after our weapon, as it is another core part of our build, and will enable us to stack our attributes and increase DPS by a massive amount. Then for the boots we're using the advanced hunting shoes with evasion and energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, more to dexterity and fire and cold resistance. Then for first and second ring we got the same one called the Prismatic Ring, with more to all elemental resistances. And for more we want adds fire or cold damage to attacks, and more strength, dexterity and intelligence. And then finally for the amulet we have Amber Amulet with strength. And for more we want more to all attributes, more to strength and intelligence. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best setup in the endgame, and if you only can afford few things, then I would recommend to prioritize the weapon, then the gloves, and finally the headpiece. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So for maps and AoV farming, we simply want to spam our Tempest flurry while making sure to maintain the charge staff for as long as possible. However, then for single targets and boss fights, we want to start by attacking with the Tempest flurry to generate combo stacks. So then we use our Tempest belt and then continue attacking with the Tempest flurry. This combo will freeze the bell and generate a power charge. So then afterwards we use our power charge by casting the charge staff. So then once the charge staff is active, we want to continue attacking the target with the Tempest Fury and replace the Tempest Bell whenever it goes down. So this endgame build will utilize the Skeletal Frost mages by buffing them insanely high, so then in return we can do huge amount of damage. They also can freeze enemies and bosses, which will make very hard content a walk in the park. This build's greatest strength is its primary defense, so we will have a massive amount of energy shield, and by using the Grim Feast we will double it, so in the endgame we will be able to reach up to 13,000 energy shield. On top of this, our setup's playstyle will allow you to clear quite aggressively, while still being able to pull back and let your enemies protect you from the enemies whenever needed. If you are looking for very OP but passive gameplay, where most of the work is done by your minions, then this is the build for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the Witch and our ascendancy is Infernalist. Then for the first skill, we have the Skeletal Frost mages with the support gems such as the Arcane Tempo, Scatter Shot, Feeding Frenzy, Vault Shards and the Cold Mastery. Then second, we get the Skeletal Storm mage with Conduction, Storm Fire, Lightning Penetration and the Overcharge. Then next we got Skeletor Cleric with Ingenuity, Last Gasp and the Minion Mastery. Next we have Pain Offering with Persistence, Ablution, Inspiration and Fan of Rage. Next up we have the Hypothermia with a Heightened Curse, Spell Cascade and Focus Curse. Next we got Frost Bomb with a Spell Cascade, Fan of Mana, Fan of Blood and the Strip Away. Next we got the Grim Feast with the Clarity. Next we have Summon Infernal Hound with a Meat Shield, Maim, Culling Strike, Fire Exposure and the Fire Mastery. And finally for the last one we are using the Sigil of the Power with the Magnified effect. Most of this setup is structured around using our Skeletal Frost mages to delete enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their defense and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell and minion damage node, and go like this while taking the raw destruction and the power of the dead. Then next we want to move to the right and get all of these three, so pure energy, dampening shield and the living dead, as well as get this whole circle. Then afterwards we keep on going while taking necrotized flesh and relentless fallen. Then next we go like this, and then from this point take the left path and take all of these nodes. And then from this point and onwards you can go here up to the top and just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. Also keep in mind that all of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they are the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then in the late game to make it even more powerful. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Loyal Hellhound for that minion skill and 20% reduced damage. Then second we get Altered Flesh. This will help out in dealing with physical damage if you have chaos resistance, or when you start stacking maximum fire damage, then you will take less cold and lightning damage. Then for our third pick we have the Berat's Will. This will give us more maximum spirit, but in return it will reduce our life by 25%. This might seem like a huge debuff, but it's 100% worth it, because of how insanely high we have our energy shield stacked up. And then finally for the last one we got the Berat's Hand. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we wanna first of all go to the left side and get all of these nodes, and then go down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this we have even more passives. Which order in which you unlock them doesn't matter, so this time it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have the Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Rattling Scepter. This is one of the most important items as it will increase our minions' damage. However, if you prefer more damage over using a shield for passive block chance, then you can build a scepter together with a spiked club, for that extra levels to all minion skills. And for bonus stats we want to get more to spirit, max mana and plus levels of all minion skills. Then also for the offhand we got the advanced Omen Crest Shield with the block. And for stats we want max energy shield, more to spirit and chaos resistance. Pretty much for this one we want a high energy shield and armor base. And a really good unique to acquire early on is the Ox one. However, you can later on replace it with other options that give you 2 sockets or even more to spirit. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with the energy shield. And for more we want max energy shield, max life and plus levels to all minion skills. Then for chest we have the Expert Altar Robe with the energy shield. And for more we got even more energy shield, more to spirit, as well as fire and cold resistance. Then for belt we have the Fine Belt with the faster flask recovery. And for more we want max life, max mana and more to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the Expert Entrusted Gloves with the energy shield. And for more we want even more max energy shield, max life and chaos resistance. Then for boots we're using the Expert Feather Sandals with the energy shield. And for more we need increased movement speed, max energy shield, as well as chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the first ring we got the Prismatic Ring with more to all elemental resistances. And for the extra stats we got max mana, max life, and again even more percentage to all elemental resistances. Well then for the second one we have the Amethyst Ring, as this is a very easy place to get even more chaos resistance. And for more we got max mana, adds physical damage to attacks and cold and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Lunar Amulet with a lot of max energy shield. And for more we want more to spirit, more levels to all minion skills, as well as chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which would be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the easiest and simplest builds in the game. At all times our minions are going to be active, so then all we need to do is run around the map while simply using the Pain Offering, then Hypothermia, and then from here just spam the Frost Bombs, and that's about it. As I said at the start, this build is very simple, and for weak enemies, you won't really have to do anything besides run into them and then the minions will do the rest. However, what I usually like to do is also keep spamming the Sigil of the Power as soon as it's up, and it will give us a nice simple buff to increase our DPS even more. And then finally, especially in the beginning when you're not geared enough and sometimes may die, then make sure that your elemental resistances are at 75%. Furthermore, make sure that your specific items that you have equipped will give you as much energy shield as possible.